change coming. I'm feeling a change. This is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war.
I feel the rain on my skin. I hear my heart beating within. I feel the spirit in the wind. Bigger than what I see in front of me, deeper than the valleys below my feet. I'm in between two worlds that meet.
This is a spiritual war.
This is a spiritual war. Everybody's choosing sides, trying hard to justify. We lock the doors and stay inside. This is a spiritual war. It's not against flesh or blood. One heart, one mind, one love. It's time to rise up with the sun. This is a spiritual war. 'Cause it's a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war. Take the blue, the red. You wanna be alive or you wanna be whack. Ain't nobody got the time to listen to the truth they said, 'cause all the truth they fed is manipulated, jaded, and fake. The world's got a lot of things to offer. If I only bow down and give myself a profit, I see the diamonds, gold, and all these fancy dollars, and whatever else they try to cough up, all just to keep me locked up. But I ain't gon' run with it. I ain't gon' talk like them. I ain't gon' play around sitting singing songs with them. I ain't gon' live like that in the pit of hell with my so-called baller hat. I ain't gon' do that. I'ma play the game different. Ain't no shame with it. I'ma win with no chains on me, holding on to victory as I walk in peace. I talk with authority, knowing who I am, and it ain't boring me.
Feeling a change coming. I'm feeling a change coming. Right here, I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling a change all around me. No doubt, I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling a change running down me. Been a long time coming, long time coming.
All right, welcome guys back to the LeCape Livestream. Tonight we are going to be covering how to up your live streaming easily and professionally. It's funny, this is episode 6 of this series that I've been doing, and you know, it's fascinating to see just how much we've basically grown, both in terms of the technology that we're using here, the learning curve that I've been going through to just, again, use this place as a test bed for different ideas and techniques. You can already see the lighting has just changed up, just again, trying to modify what we're doing and, you know, just again, increase the quality of what we're putting out. But more importantly, to show that it's possible that even on, you know, again, pulling together random pieces of what you've got around the house, you can actually increase your live streaming game. What's fascinating though, I think a lot of people, when they step into live stream, you have two different types. You have the ones who actually will use a nice camera, and shout out to Daniel LaBelle, who creates hilarious little videos and stuff that he puts together. And he shoots it on, you know, on a quality camera. Then there's the other type who are like, they are trying to get the information out and they're shooting it on their phones. And this video is geared towards them. It's not geared towards the professional who's already knows what they're doing. It's geared towards those who are like, how can I up my game and increase the quality of what I'm doing? And it's interesting because, you know, using professional quality camera, you can do a lot of things that you normally can't. Like right now, there's actually like a light bulb, and I'll jump back to my previous slide. There's a light bulb right here. This normally causes problems for any small sensor camera. And I'll demonstrate this as we kind of walk along. But before I do, I want to make sure to invite you guys out. Every weekday, I'll be doing a live stream here. at 9 p.m. Central to cover live streaming for the church, for nonprofits, for businesses, people who are looking for ways to jump on board. This is applicable for anybody, whether it's you're at home trying to do, demo out something, or like put together like a nice little cooking live stream that you're putting together. Anybody who's looking to kind of jump into this live territory, these videos are for you guys. But really, I want you to know the heart and original intent of this is for the church. And I say that because, again, we're all in this together. This is something that we're all trying to tackle. Just before I hop into kind of the details, I want to remind you guys also that I've now launched a new Facebook group. It's called Livestream Church. I'm going to be putting on custom content over there, as well as the latest news as they hit there, as well as troubleshooting, typical techniques and tricks that you can typically find that will solve you a lot of headaches. And it's funny that for the church, it's 4 weeks into this, and there are things already changing as a result of people's habits and all of these kind of things. So let's talk about the 3 main things, though, that a good live stream needs to have. One is lighting, sound, and composition. Those are 3 key essential things. I think if we, again, eliminate the camera, we eliminate out a lot of these different pieces, those are typically the troubles that we're running into when we're trying to record or capture ourselves on any platform, whether it's TikTok to Facebook Live to Twitter to etc. These are all problems that we've cropped into. And so what I'm going to do is walk you through a couple things that can really just solve easy problems that are really rookie mistakes when it comes to using your original iPhone to stream. I see a ton of pastors who are doing this on their phones, and I think, again, it's one of these things where there was a little season there where we're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get any gear from Amazon because it was so slammed. And, they've again ramped up. Facebook was also another platform where it was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to handle this because they keep crashing every Sunday because every church would hop online. But, again, they are, Amazon and them will fight, and Facebook will fight for their lives to make sure that this stuff keeps going because this is their platform. So, without further ado, let's hop into the typical problems that you run into. Now, I'm going to actually be demoing here with a phone of mine, and pardon me, dragging it out here. And normally, this is the scenario that we're working with: is we have got our phone connected onto, our device, and it's we're streaming right from that, and it's crazy because if you think about it, these are serious problems that we run into, and what does this look like, Already you can kind of see, though, from a quality standpoint, it doesn't look great, unfortunately. And that is kind of a big issue that we run into when you're recording live. The quality tends to suffer out of all this. So one of the tricks that we've done to kind of, again, fix that is light sources play a huge role. And that's why if we go back to our first slide, lighting is the #1 thing that you need to be concerned about. In our case, we have transformed, if you were to see what this room looked like with just our normal lights on, it doesn't look like this. So we've actually, again, transformed our lighting situation to better help us. We have a nice soft box that's sitting right up here, and it's giving a nice cast on here. It's also, creating some dynamic lighting here. Behind us, too, we've got blue lighting that's happening here, as well as some yellow that's being added from a light over here. The funny thing is all those lights, except for that one, is literally lighting from IKEA, like smart lighting from IKEA. And I'm going to demonstrate this as a little bit of a demo of, again, why this is such a cool thing that you can, again, focus on. And I'm going to quick just show you guys, again, some of the power that you can do just simply by having your phone accessible. So right now, I'm going to hop over to, again, the IKEA Smart app that we've got. And I'm going to bring this bulb in and jump in here, and I'm going to actually quick toggle this guy off. So right now you can tell already that we've got a blue bulb that's casting on me, and this is typically the problem that people run into, is they're using bare exposed bulbs. Now on a great sensor, this actually looks pretty good. It's not that bad. It actually kind of adds an interesting dynamic. You can use it as a rim light, and this kind of scenario is not necessarily bad for somebody who's got gear. Someone who doesn't, however, this typically what it will cause is almost this strange phenomenon, which basically is called ghosting, where you would see, again, this kind of grayed out video. And so one of the tricks, though, that you can do, again, when it comes to just having simple lighting around the house, picking up smart bulbs from Philips, we'll put a link here in in the description. IKEA has been cheap in terms of what you can pull off and multicolor, which is awesome. So a great example is this right here. I have full control over this light bulb, and I don't just mean from a lighting standpoint, from a color standpoint too. And this brings us to one of the biggest problems that we typically run into when we're dealing with light is mixed lighting. Now already, like if I were to do something like this, it already may have a nice moodiness to it, but if you're trying to live stream and you've got a heavy orange source, you know, the iPhone is actually quite unintelligent when it comes to recording things. And I noticed this when I actually started trying to do live streams myself. The issue that you run into when you're doing them is suddenly your face could end up like this, even though you're like, that's not what skin tone looks like. The iPhone itself is searching, interestingly enough, for a white source to reference when it's doing this. And so you can either add in, you know, something super simple here is to add in, you know, some piece of white into the mix to help white balance it out. And that can help sort of. But if you take that white source out, the camera itself will again turn the camera, you know, white balance completely off, and you'll end up with a warmer face, a much less appealing, you know, like look to what you're recording. The other thing that you can do as well is to again remove out different colored lighting. And what do I mean by that? For a professional, you know, like you would say, well, there's different white balance here. We've got essentially a pretty, you know, over tungsten level lighting, and then we have a cool light as well. And so it's giving this weird, you know, mix of lighting that you can even see right there. So a way to control this whole situation is, again, control the lighting that you're working with. Pick something that's a little more adaptable to what you're doing. Don't having a light right next to you is also a key. And one of the crazy things too that's been an issue, and I'll quick highlight this, guys, for you as well, is again, like when you're taking video in, is having a direct light source. Now right now this still is semi-soft, which is why again the Sony is handling it well. But I have over there a spotlight that if I were to actually bring and point directly at this, you would see again this almost weird behavior of where the light itself actually turns me into this gray mush. And you've seen it on your Zoom calls, you've seen it on FaceTime, on Hangouts, and all these kind of things where someone is like, oh hey, I'll just put the window right behind me because I want them to see my background. And then what happens to their face? But again, it grays out. It doesn't look flattering at all. And you're like, oh man. So one of the tips you can do, first and foremost, is if you're using a phone, the window is not your enemy, but it's not your friend. So you don't want to be shooting, you know, live video right into a light source like a window during daytime. Nighttime, it doesn't matter as much. You will see reflections, which is kind of annoying. But not as big of a deal. The thing though that you want to keep in mind too though, is that you do want to, again, control the different color lighting that you have. On our case, like this, I can actually, let me fade this down so you can kind of see it on video. I can just drag the slider down if I want to bring down the lighting color here to almost non-existent, bring it all the way up. So smart lighting is again, a budgetary-minded way of dealing with lighting. It's a way that you can quickly control everything that's happening in one room. So if you're in daytime, if you're in night, you can actually, again, control the lights. And what's interesting, and IKEA sells two different types. One is, you know, again, and just like a Philips Hue, there's a ton of other options out there. I mean, this place is, the market's saturated, which is awesome. But having total control over lighting, you can use it for creative elements. Like right now, how we've got a mix basically of gold and blue. You can use it as well as a, you know, if you're daylight outside, you want to have daylight coming through your light bulb. So you can actually set it correctly across the entire gamut of, like, the entire image. So like your face can be cleanly lit by daylight and daylight inside as well. And so if you're wanting something that's more, you know, modern and clean, that's a way to go. Is again, control what it is. If you're trying to get more edgy per se, you know, changing up the lighting, you know, can actually do those kind of things as well. But again, having nice, interesting lighting that can get cast over it. And these are all different things that you can use either right now on my skin tone, or don't think it's all evil, you know, a nice rim light, which is basically putting the light behind me. Now, right now you're like, okay, this looks terrible. There's a light there. But if I were to put up the slide again, the light disappeared, and now it's actually this really fascinating, you know, granted more of a rim light from like CSI, but it's still pretty cool. And you can use this across all the different colors of the spectrum until you find something that you like. So like right now, this could be actually a pretty, you know, interesting take on lighting. And I didn't have to do much more than literally a couple button taps. So huge difference that can happen just again by controlling what's in your lighting. A couple things else that I would want to reference here under lighting is, you know, again, not pointing towards windows. One of the critical things that I do want to also encourage is being mindful of the light position. And what I mean by that is, in the case of this, like right now, it's a nice soft light. It's actually not accenting my shadows here, but a unfortunate reality though is, again, if I'm using a bare bulb, for instance, you know, depending on your light source, like you can really ruin your live stream. I mean, how many have seen, you know, again, a very brightly lit Zoom conference where someone is like looking like they've got essentially like crazy, you know, bright and then crazy dark side of your face. And it's, again, it's due to that even illumination. Or worse yet, they have, you know, the over the head lighting, which again creates and causes shadows. The worst is when you have it, you know, basically behind you. And again, lighting is one of those things that can really screw up your image. So controlling it. And what I typically say is the easiest way to make your stuff figured out is to either have it at a 45-degree angle. In this case, we're looking basically 45, right up 45 and 45. Putting it in that kind of direction or having two are huge because that enables you, again, to control the lighting and what it looks like. The other thing that I want to basically mention too is it comes to lighting, before I hop into sound, because I think sound is just as critical. Lighting is one of those things too where it evokes a mood. Like right now, like this whole space is quite warm just because of this one additional light that I added in here. But again, adding in different colors can change up that look without much effort at all. So great example of that, you know, again, is just adding in little accents and turning them off. All these different light fixtures, again, are just standard home things, but you can, again, if you're controlling your space, you can do crazy cool little additions here. The other thing I was going to mention here, and I'll just quick turn this guy down, is to hop onto the topic of sound. And I think sound is something that is really critical when you guys are recording. Right now I'm actually using a lapel mic, and there are growing pains to it. I don't even like referencing my first couple episodes because it's like, again, when I record in a production environment, the audio is fine. When I go to live, that's when everything decides to go in, like where I have to learn, again, troubleshooting for, you know, broadcast in that sense. But one of those things that you do, again, is these pre-roll tests, and you test yourself before you go on. Lighting, camera, and audio. And one of the key things with audio is you don't want to be in a room that is all hardwood, even though it looks great. And actually, we are in a hardwood room. But if all I had was hardwood flooring, I didn't have a couch here, I didn't have a nice wool rug, and a nice long expanse before there's any kind of echo happening, and I'm using a lapel. All these things mean the sound is going to be nice and close. It's not going to be echoey or far away. It also is going to ensure that the sound that we're getting basically throughout this whole recording is going to be less muffled. And believe me, there are ways, though, even having a lapel mic, you can screw this up. And I'll demonstrate this as an example, even though I hate when someone's going to a vows and they're like, hey, you know, like a great example is like during weddings, typically this moment happens where someone's like, hey, I'm going to just talk into the mic right here, and then I'm going to hand it to you, and then you're going to come back. And what you're doing there is basically taking a great device, which is a lapel mic, and ruining it. So, sorry for those who do that often. That's a way that you shouldn't be doing it. Give it a distance of at least this far, or potentially a little bit further, depending on how loud the person is. Ideally, pinning it to your shirt is a better way to go because, again, it minimizes fabric, and you can have a wireless transmitter. You can go wired. In a pinch, if you're just trying to go on Zoom, obviously headphones are already kind of like it's an automatic, like it will sound better because you're doing that. Because again, you're controlling it to the location of where the audio is going to sound the best. One of the other things that you'll find fascinating on podcasts is you'll see a collection. I'm sorry, I'm touching this while I'm doing it, but you'll see a collection of people who talk right into this, and as they're going through their particularly interesting particles of or practices of audio, there's a p. They'll put a filter over this to guard themselves from what's known as a popping P. Because again, when you're actually talking in audio, you don't want to be right there with your mouth right against the thing without any kind of like filter, because as you make sounds like like the P sound, if you make other S type sounds and it's direct, it'll actually sound bad. So heads up in case you didn't know those kind of things. But sound again is critical. So again, bear in mind that you want a quiet space. It could be in a basement. Even if it's concrete, it's fine. There's a ton of YouTubers who are literally doing this stuff right out of their basement, and that's fine. But again, you want to make sure that you're in a space that is quiet, that is has, again, things that will quiet down your environment. So having a couch is a nice way of, again, absorbing some of that sound waves. Having things above you, too. When you see sound rooms where people are recording, it's like, I remember in El Salvador, and this is a reference to when I was working with Don and Terry Triplett in King's Castle, they created a recording studio using egg crates. It actually worked quite well, because again, it's just noise isolation. There's nice cones that were happening through there, and on a dirt cheap budget, that worked great. I'm sure, like things have improved over the, 10 years or 15, I think now, that since I was there. But those are things that can really help. And like I said, lighting is another thing that's critical. But the other piece of the puzzle that I think people tend to forget, and it happens often, is when it comes to composition. And what do I mean by that? A great example right now, like I have intentionally composed this space to fit these slides. So right now, like it's intentionally blocked off this way. Now, if I were to again hop back onto this playback screen, there's a lot of extra things going on here. I mean, I've got iPads, I've got, phone holders here and all this other stuff. All these pieces you didn't even see, because again, I am composing it, not for this view, but for this. So that you're able to, again, just see me, and the lighting is interesting. I've got, again, a nice gradient happening behind me. And there's definitely more things that you can do to improve as well, but these are just, again, starting points. But composition is one of those things where you are trying to make the view of the viewer, or when someone looks at the image, to have something that's pleasing. One is to follow the rule of thirds, which technically I'm slightly breaking, because I should probably be, somewhere right about here to be fully, following the rule of thirds. But the idea is basically take your screen and divide it into 3 quadrants. And the interesting parts of the image should be just like a tic-tac-toe board. The interesting things are across those lines. The most interesting are typically in those diagonal, like in those points of intersection, which again, my head right now is in that space. But what I'm also doing is I'm adding in slides into this graphics, which change it up. But if you again look at where my eyes are at, it still is following the rule of thirds for this specific section. So, but the thing that you want to also keep in mind is camera angle. So when you're using your phone, we've all seen the beauty shots. They're always angling down, so they hide, again, whatever's down here underneath their chin that they're trying to not, not show. And again, that's why an entire industry was formed off of selfie sticks that were always pointing down to, again, flatter your face and give you something that's, again, presentable to people. Something, though, that is fascinating about this, though, is, so again, like we're naturally doing this. The iPhone manufacturers or phone manufacturers are intentionally doing this too. They know that you are only typically using this forward-facing camera literally to, again, pull a selfie on it. So their angle on this is much wider than, say, what you have on this camera. This one is actually operating probably closer to a, I believe, 50 millimeter right now equivalent. Well, this is a 24. It's a much wider image that I'm getting off of this. So when you look at it dead on, your face, again, extrudes in a way that's not normal. So mine is actually tall, feels like almost like everything stretches out a bit because of that. Now, that's okay for a front-facing camera. But one of the things that I actually, when you're going and doing live, that actually can help you is to literally just flip the camera around. Use the portrait mode options that you have if you have the ability to zoom. If you don't, that's okay. But again, leverage basically the fact that your back camera is going to look better. And one of the key things, again, as you compose it, is the angle that you do it matters too. So, like, when you were a kid, you're always doing this. It's normal. When you're an adult, an honest communication is always right at eye line. You're looking directly at the person, they're looking directly at you. So when you talk to them, you feel a little bit of connection. And so that's okay. But then if I'm actually deciding to like kind of look more up at you, you feel like you're in more of a power position, or vice versa. If I'm starting to like look down basically at a person, it changes the entire perspective of it. So again, if your camera angle is low, they're seeing you, both a distorted face, a double chin, and etc., from that lower perspective. And it means it either is going to give you this sense of power, depending on the lens that you're using, is going to feel very awkward because you're going to, again, see everything that's happening here. Vice versa, if you're doing this, you know, again, you're going to feel small. While you might feel more happy about your face, your viewers are going to just be like, this is really weird. I'm like 10 feet tall now. While giving, again, a clean eye line, you know, again, being right at the same height as your eyes will give a much better look, you know, for a longer duration than something that's, again, a short photo is fine, but a long-term video is not if you're doing it at that same level. The other thing, too, is, again, keeping in mind that if you're doing this with your hands are tending to get tired, so eventually things will get tilted or shuffled. If you're doing it on a laptop on a desk, it's constantly vibrating, which is also annoying. So again, finding a stand, like in this case, it's literally a rig, and I'll quick hop over again to the wide view here so you can kind of see the rig. Again, you can use this type of rig, which is again a GorillaPod along with a iPhone tripod adapter. It lets me both do portrait and landscape at the same time. Really, really helpful. I'll throw some links here after we get done with the podcast here for you to check it out. But composing your phone in different ways can really dramatically affect what you're doing. Unprofessionally doing it can, again, cause problems. So keeping it stable if you're trying to be stable. If you're trying to move, you know, looking into, you know, gimbals are not a bad option. There's literally an entire project of mine that was done in Mexico was because of using gimbals with iPhones, and they're helpful. They can take, you know, your iPhone has one of those innate abilities to be able to stream without any extra hardware, so you can take it throughout the woods and walk through it live. You can take it into your kitchen and walk through around, but you have to plan out what you're doing, so again, you're not finding where, again, your camera angles don't follow you. So with those three things in line, again, lighting, sound, and composition, I'm going to talk over a couple basics for people who are doing, again, shooting on phones. First and foremost, and this actually goes across the board, if you're a professional, you're doing this anyways, is to clean off your lens and your mic. I say your mic for a phone because typically it causes problems. But your phone lens can get so dirty or smudged, specifically if you're wearing, you know, if you have makeup on, if you are kind of a more naturally oily face anyways, those smudges will, again, distort the picture on here. And it's kind of akin to, we all sense it, so we quickly pull out our, you know, our sleeve or something and just quick clean it off. A Clorox wipe on your phone is not a bad idea, as they've proven that you can do it over 1,000 times and still not tear off your, the actual, like, part of the filters that are on your screen to ensure that water drips right off. But the other thing to do as well is, again, I say clean off your mic for your phone, because if you're putting it in your pocket constantly and you're not using an external mic or any other source, you're going to create problems when it comes to recording your audio. So keep that in mind. Mixed lighting, I talked about that during our lighting segment here. You want to generally have mixed lighting off the table. And I only say that for people who are using phones. If you're a professional, like, mixed lighting is a way of life. You're going to, you know, you'll leverage lighting to make a scene more interesting. But for those who are not, and you guys are, you know, again, using your phone, you want to, again, bear in mind that it's going to look better if there's a single color temperature light. And I'll quick go through this again because I know we've had a couple people join in. To quick demo what I mean. And what I mean is, you know, right now we have pretty similar light sources that are happening. And I'll show you the fact that this additional light that I've got in here, same, very similar light temperature to the actual LED that's above me. But if I were to change this up, again, using the smart lighting that I've got, and let's just, again, assume that we've had daylight on our lights, soft white, I believe is what they call it on the standard light bulbs, and then you mix in, hey, I'm going to record during sunset, suddenly, like, it doesn't become an appealing color and your camera starts fighting to preserve the fact that this is a face. And instead it's looking more like you got, covered in some kind of Batman villain from the 90s makeup job. The same is true though if you're, again, going too cold, it can again affect your face. Now, in some cases it's not bad. It can actually add a nice accent to what you're doing. But again, anything in moderation is great, but causing bad exposure is also a problem. So one of the great things you can do too, again, is, like I said, controlling all the lighting that's in your space is important. So if you know that your house has got a billion different windows and on any given day it looks different, then setting up in the basement's not a bad idea, or in a room that doesn't have windows. If you though know that it's like, my lighting is always predictable here. Like in our house, just because of, again, the angle of the house where it's at, the lighting is pretty predictable. But because of the time of the day, I'm always here at night. So that's where, again, like for me, it works. But for others, it might be different. In your home space, you need to, again, some of the things that I also see that are really fascinating that can cause problems as well is, again, picking where you put your camera or your computer. I've seen enough moments where, like, let's say, for instance, you have an iPad here and you're going ahead and streaming. One of the fascinating things that happens here is, again, because this is a clear, transparent material, light can actually pass through and destroy your camera sensor. So you could be like, oh, I look fine, like the lighting seems fine. But then if this light is actually affecting the bottom here, and I'll kind of exaggerate how bad it could affect it. Let's do this. Yeah. So notice how, like, the actual, like, color itself, depending on the angle, you can actually tell that it's starting to get on a pink tone onto it. That is going to affect your actual camera lens as well. If I were to go over to the camera here and actually do the same thing, you'd see the same problem crop onto it, which is basically that light gets cast into the actual lens itself. So if you have a light overhead, directly overhead, or somewhere between you and your computer, or even behind you, that's an exposed bulb or some other light source that's, again, able to hit here, it will ruin it. So one of the quick tips, which is hilarious, but I see a quick question from Jennifer. She says that if she wants to do a cooking, yeah, I will quick hop on that again, but a gimbal is an easy way of doing it. The iPhones now are actually not that bad when you're walking around, but one of the things is, again, like, you have to kind of choose, and I'll quick get back to a flattering light. I'm not really a fan of this. There we go. One of the things that you have to, again, choose is, just like we said during the slide, is lighting, sound, and composition. One of the things that I did enjoy was, again, removing composition out of the equation. Position in a place where the camera is going to highlight your cooking, best accent your space, and not cause you trouble. So putting it on, say, again, a GorillaPod with a tripod attachment for your iPhone is a huge helpful thing that you can do. You can also use a gimbal in these kind of settings if you're moving around a lot. But again, the more that you move around, the more that your camera's having to track. So if you're fine with your camera tracking all the way around your entire room, that's fine. But it's always about perception at this point. No one knows what's past the camera behind, like behind the actual camera itself. They can't see it. So, but yes, onto the last kind of little note for those, again, where you're operating with a computer here and having this situation where you're seeing light bleed over from it. And actually, a better way even is kind of how a book can take on, notice the gray background here, how it starts taking on that same bluish tone. Even though I'm not technically on it, it still is picking that up. Do you notice that? And so that moment that's happening, your iPhone screen is seeing that too. So we're going to quick do a fun little test here, where again, you see that it's still applying that. If you were to say, let me just pull up a nice white sheet of paper here. So on this, you put some kind of hood here over it. You notice that the actual page itself is not affected. Now, if the light is actually getting cast in there, see how everything's getting affected now. Back to again where you don't see it, and you notice how the color in the gray transitions to blue, and then back to gray. This is why on a lot of cameras that you see in movie days have a massive hood on top of it to basically block out external light, literally from all directions. They're doing this so they can shoot in much more versatile ways. Our phones and our other devices don't have this. So if you're, again, broadcasting from a computer, literally get something as simple as a Post-it note and a black Sharpie, make that Post-it note black on both sides, cut a little hole here for your camera and stick it over it, creating, again, that same angle like this. So again, you are blocking whatever light's above it so that light doesn't hit below. So you notice, again, this same thing is happening right now, where it's, again, blocking the above light from it. So just, again, creating a little bit of a shelf above it, if your light source is coming from above, can actually make a huge difference. If you are outdoors and you're like, I don't have that, and you have your phone, literally doing something as simple as this, where you're, again, creating your own mini shelf, can make a huge difference as you're recording on either side of the camera. Getting the proper gear is always better. I know Moments is another company that sells gear for iPhones for people who are trying to stream. But again, covering an external light source can make a huge difference when it comes to, again, what it looks like. And last little moment as I demo it, because I want to drive this in, because I feel like if you can learn one thing out of this video, again, it's the protection of what Great example is another nice white page. Please learn this lesson. So again, if you have a light source at any color, it could be a nice blue, it could be an extremely warm color as well. By putting something to cover it, you're blocking that color from actually affecting what's on the inside. So just putting a small shelf can make a huge difference. Okay, now if you can learn that, great, because that will make a huge difference for all of us here. Last kind of thing I wanted to open up, if you missed this episode or you're just tuning in now, please feel free to hop back in. I've talked over quite a bit of things. Lighting is one of them. Talked over some of these interesting options for when you're working in your home, because I feel like that is the thing that a lot of people are dealing with right now, is we're doing all these live streams from our house, and lighting is a problem. So if you missed it, hop on there. I talk about basically the applications they're using with smart lighting. Something as simple as either Philips Hue, IKEA smart lights like this, that give me the ability to, again, change through colors at will. And a thing that I didn't even really demo that much is, again, the powerful things that you can do behind you, having the ability to control all these all the lighting that's actually taking place behind me. And let me quick hop on this as well. Yeah, so all of those lights are smart lights. So right now, I'm gonna quick power this up to full power. This is a nice orange light, which again changes the entire look like that. And if you've got a preview monitor, or you're able to just, again, check with your phone, you're able to make these kind of decisions in real time quickly. Some other options that you can do as well is I quick hop on these other lights. And you see how mood already is now getting established behind with, again, two different styles of light here. And let me just turn on one more here, boosting up that blue. So, and again, you can mess with this however you want. You can you could say I don't like the blue, I prefer yellow. You can do that too, and create a nice, interesting backdrop. And the changes of colors that you can do through this are insane. If I want to, again, make the background here go crazy gradient, I can do that. And there's a lot of that you've got in terms of lighting. So using smart lights, it's a cheap way of basically doing set lighting. Now when it comes to the actual lighting yourself issue, you do want to keep in mind that control is important. Being able to control what you're doing. And so you can do situations, you know, and actually friends of mine who use bare bulbs is fine. But one of the things that you'll even see from, again, budget-minded DPs is they're actually using shower curtains in between. I'm gonna again, hop back here to where you can see putting something between you and that light source can actually mean a huge difference in terms of the quality of light that you're getting. Like the light that's happening up here, there's essentially, it's like a bed sheet over it. It's softening out the light so it's not as harsh of shadows on me. It's also increasing the size of what that light source looks like. So another funny thing is there's a reason why, and I'll quick demo the horrific looking flash that's on a phone. There's a reason why the shadows on the phone look terrible. The flash looks terrible. It's like literally, if you get it at the wrong angle, it does not look soft. And yes, you can dial down the strength, but the size of the light source is still going to be small, which means your shadows are going to be crazy bad. So, you know, again, larger light sources make a huge difference. So soften out that light. If you have a nice window, throwing on some semi-transparent blinds can make a huge difference. And actually, I've got another question here from Alex Lyons here. How do you make a homemade ring light? Well, I mean, if you are the DIY type, I would just suggest Googling it. If you're not, surprisingly, like there is so many cheap options for ring lights out that you can get straight up from Best Buy. You know, you can get it from Best Buy, from Amazon, from other things. You can even construct one literally leveraging some of the stuff that IKEA sells at its stores, or you can get off of Amazon, which is LED strips, and then build those into a ring, and then again soften those things out with some kind of like semi-transparent plastic. Gives you controllability, gives you the ability to change colors. But a couple things on those notes, and this is more on the pro side of things. If you're a pro, you'll go with something that's been tested for the specific color temperatures that you're looking for. But you can hack it for sure. It's definitely possible. And the same thing is true, like this whole idea of using smart lighting and leveraging things that exist in your house is one of the huge things that you can do, where again, you can leverage the fact that all these things are cheap. You just have to know how to piece all these pieces together. You know, as I said, and to kind of recap, I know I've gone long here. I don't even want to count how long I've been rolling for, 43 minutes. Goodness, thank you for all you who are hanging in there. But no, like one of the things that you want to, again, keep in mind, lighting, composition, and sound. So controlling your lighting is huge. Controlling your sound. If you're in a space that sounds hollowy when you walk in, or you can do a clap test, and you're like, if you can hear the echo, you're in a bad space to record. So you can either, if you're like lighting-wise, this looks great, composition, it looks great, but audio is terrible, bring a rug in, bring in some furniture, bring some things that basically help soften the sound out. Or, you know, one great option again is like, you know, if you can bring in either like some kind of tapestry type rug that you could have and put on the back, you know, on the wall that can, again, when your sound waves hit there and it bounces back, it silences that, it muffles it. Getting a lapel mic can help a ton because, again, the actual pickup range of a lapel is much shorter. So you can have someone here over talking and being loud and you don't even hear them. Or if you do, it's very muffled or quiet. Lapels are also useful in a home situation because, again, if you have a lot of people who are talking, you know, throughout this whole time period, you know, like you have kids that come and run, or, you know, like loud noises that just happen naturally occurring in your house, whether it's, again, trees or whatever. Having a lapel mic silences a lot of those down. Now, right now, that's one of the reasons I choose 9 o'clock to post up my podcast, because I've got 3 kids, and, you know, it's one of those things. But those are some things, again, that you can manage. And composition, we talked about angles when it comes to the way that you record. If you missed those sections, hop back at the start. Everything was much more concise. As we kind of get into this QA section, things get a little longer. But I appreciate all you guys who have jumped in and stayed on. I wanted to before we transition out of here. I wanted to again remind you guys that we're going to be here every weekday at 9 p.m. This is, like I said, a test bed for a lot of new technologies that we're pulling out. So everything from, again, pulling from your phone and capturing to live streaming with multiple people to crazy different concepts of pulling in worship leaders together, conferences together, etc. It's a place where I like to just again exercise the creativity and push myself in ways to hack things together. The other thing I wanted to mention is for those who are in the church, I've created a new Facebook group called Livestream Church. I want you guys to check it out. That will be a place where I, again, post in content here. You can ask me questions directly in there and I'll answer them. Same with, if you run into problems. I'll be doing my best to keep that place updated with the latest of what's happening. But more importantly, I want it to be a space where we talk just straight live stream. This isn't me trying to pitch you to buy the latest motion graphics thing. If anything, actually, this past Easter, I gave away a graphic, which you might have seen at the start of this video. So for me, it's more a place where we can all just come and share. So, but those are the two things. One of the last things that I do actually at the end of all of our podcasts is to pray for you guys, for those who are working in the church, for those who aren't, but are here just to kind of see what we're doing. The whole reason we put these things together is really at the end of the day, the season that we're in, while it is temporary, is a moment where, I think the church is one of the few places that knows how to create community. And it's a great place for people to actually, again, exercise that ability to, to rebuild community in a time where community is basically getting lost or digitized. So that's the purpose of this. And with that, I'm going to close in prayer. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me. I'm available here on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc. But until then, I will see you guys and just going to end in prayer. Lord, thank you so much for a night, God, where we get to just talk about simple things and making, Lord God, again, our cameras on our phones, the things that we have available, Lord, to reach people and to build community. I pray that you would bless, Lord, each person who's coming onto this podcast. I pray that you would give them, Lord God, wisdom and peace, as they are, for those who are in the church, we pray that you would help them, Lord, to rebuild community, Lord God, for them to, again, bring the gospel, Lord God, to every person and to bring hope. The most important thing, Lord God, that you brought to us, Lord, this past Easter was the fact that you showed us that this world is not hopeless. It has Jesus. And we thank you for that. Thank you for their time, Lord God, that they've given. Pray that you bless them, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you guys again. And like I said, join us here tomorrow. We'll be here live at 9 p.m. Central. Until then.
Change coming. I'm feeling a change coming. Right here, I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling a change all around me. No doubt, I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling a change running down me. Now.